All right, welcome in. We are live to another Maize and Brew six-pack. We are previewing a big one today, my friend. The Rib God is on deck. Some people are saying this is the biggest moment since Blink-182 played in a Denny's in like 2012.
I love that we were just talking about that.
Randomly, like famous Blink-182 playing at a Denny's. No reason for it, but yet you get it. And there's no reason for us to come to you live on this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, but you're going to get it. Excited for all of you that are already in the chat. Happy Bradley. Good to see you. If you have any questions, fire them off. We're talking Illinois today. This was a game that for a couple weeks, I've been horrified. I was predicting loss, and then they played that game against Purdue, and I have no idea what to make of. That game was on more bath salts than anybody I ever met in my time living in Florida. Difficult to take much away from that. Illinois sitting at 5-1, number 22 in the country. We are currently sitting at number 24. Big ranked matchup here. Where do you want to start with this, my friend?
I have no idea. Like this team is a complete mystery to me. Like I think I understood a lot about until last week, like you talked about. But after the Purdue game, I'm kind of at a loss. I mean, this is a very weird situation, uncharted territory for the Illini. It's the first ranked game at Memorial Stadium since 2000. So 24 years since they've hosted a game of this magnitude in Champaign. But I guess if we're going to start anywhere, we should start on the offense.
Yes, I suppose that we should, being as how they put up 50 against Purdue. But coming into that game, this wasn't necessarily an offense that scared me. It was an offense that was kind of like what Michigan wanted to be: balanced, effective, didn't turn the ball over. You get some okay quarterback play from Luke Altmaier. But then in Purdue against, obviously Purdue, not a defense that we're going to compare ourselves to, not a defense that one should look up to, but they were able to turn it on late in the fourth quarter of that bath salts game. So yeah, man, where do you want to start here? You want to start with Altmaier?
Yeah. Do you think he's the most improved player in the Big Ten this season?
That's a very good question. I haven't really thought about that because Curtis Rourke wasn't in the Big Ten last season. So if we're just limiting it to people that were in the Big Ten last season,
so last year he had 13 touchdowns and 10 picks, and right now he has 14 touchdowns and 1 pick.
That's why you're the best. The GOAT right there. Got last year's stats ready for me. He's up there, man. I'd say he's right in that conversation. What about you?
I think so. Like, I was shocked at how he improved this season. And honestly, but that's what you want to see. I mean, he didn't start his career at Illinois. He was there last year. I believe he began his career at Ole Miss, which is strange to imagine that. But this is what you used to see from quarterbacks, like, stay in the system a little bit, get their feet wet, understand and improve. Like, not everybody just kind of stays the same. You look at like the Greek Rifle, no matter what school he plays for, he's the Greek Rifle.
Yes.
A bunch of players like that. But it's been really cool to see his progression at Illinois. And I mean, he's not doing it alone. He has some studs on the outside, but just himself and what he's done, he looks like a completely different quarterback with the year of experience under his belt with Brett Bielema.
Yeah, you put the Greek Rifle on James Madison or the Kansas City Chiefs, you're getting $161, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Does not matter.
Same.
Yep. Real quick, let's get to the comments here. Kicking Chicken, good to see you there. Lewis, marriage advice. What you popped the question, my big man? Is that what's going on here? That's exciting if that's the case. Congratulations. Why can't Michigan football have the same chemistry as us fine gentlemen? Because we've been doing it for 7 years. Chemistry takes time.
This is only year 1 under Shrug. Let's give him some time. Our first year of podcasting was not that great.
No, you can go back and listen to some of those. It is a tough listen. Yeah, I would prefer you did it. But yeah, man, you're onto something with Luke Altmaier. Might be, if not the most improved passer in the Big Ten, might be the most improved player in the Big Ten. You're the offensive line guy here. I always dictate or go to you on offensive line play. What I've seen, and I watched Penn State, probably the closest, is a pretty good offensive line. I couldn't give it stunning remarks there or glowing remarks, but it was up against a very good defensive line in Penn State. What have you seen from this unit?
I don't like this offensive line. Honestly, I think it's the offense's biggest weakness. They're number 120 in sacks allowed, number 123 in TFLs allowed. They don't get the push that they used to. It's a big reason why their passing offense is better than their rushing offense. 58th nationally in passing, 87th in rushing. Have struggled to get the job done. Granted, Caden Fagan has been banged up. He missed the game against Purdue, and he's doubtful for Saturday. And while Josh McCray is a serviceable backup, he's okay. But even if they had Ashton Genty back there, he might be held to at least only $150 with this offensive line.
Was Fagan the original plan for them as
Yeah.
RB1 this year? Okay, got you. I
Fagan is
thought
the
for
one
some
that's built
reason.
like Derrick Henry. He's
Yeah,
massive and he's fast, but like their line just took a step back this year. I believe they returned 3 on the right side, but like it's just been very inconsistent at times, and it's just not what not what you're used to under a Brett Bielema team.
right. Yeah, absolutely. That being said, I mean, it's still probably an above average unit in the Big Ten. Against our defense, I do think this is going to be a strength, though. This is going to be a strength. Let's move over to their wide receiver core. Altmaier having some pretty solid connections.
Studs, man.
There's some studs in this group here. Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant really showed out. Those guys have made their way onto our fantasy football teams because they're putting up such solid numbers week in and week out. Which one of these guys do you want to start with? Which one do you think poses the bigger threat?
Pat Bryant. He's very similar to Denzel Boston for Washington, where he is like the favorite target with a bullet. I mean, he has 452 yards on the year, 7 touchdowns. So he has half of Luke Altmaier's touchdowns so far this season. He will be critical to cover in this game.
Absolutely. So imagine a lot of Will Johnson on him. You and I were kind of kicking around like maybe it's time to make the move. Will Johnson to the nickel. Could this be the game?
God,
It kind of depends on if Amir Hall's back and available, right?
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing. I mean, we have to solidify the middle of this defense. The safeties and nickel position have just been bad, especially the nickel. And with Will moving the nickel, you can't avoid him as much. Like you can't just like have a game plan where you avoid him. He's going to be moved around and do so much more. So we'll see. But if not, man, pray every time Jair Hill lines up on Pat Bryant.
I'm not going to be okay if we lose to Illinois because they're spreading the ball around on like in the passing game. That just doesn't sound right. I mean, if you're telling me Brett Bielema beat us running the ball and playing defense and committing fewer penalties, I understand that. That happens. The man knows his way around some smoked meats and some pin and pulls. But if you're telling me that Luke Altmaier beat us, I'm going to have some concerns, man. Like, so this secondary, this might be the number one matchup to watch. Their passing offense versus our passing defense. What do you think?
I think it's right up there. I mean, that's a big thing because our secondary has just been so porous. And it's like Luke Altmaier is a smart quarterback. He rarely turns the ball over. And I think it'll be very important to watch the opening drive of this game. So I have an interesting stat here. Illinois' scripted offense is incredible. Besides week 1, Illinois has scored points on the opening possession of every game. Against Penn State, Illinois began the game with a 75-yard scoring drive. However, after that, they only averaged 22 yards per possession over their next 7. So as long as Michigan can withstand that first little onslaught of the offense, getting their scripted plays and adjust accordingly, I think they're going to be just fine in this. But if they panic trailing or if they panic tied early, get away from themselves, pass it a little too much because, hey, Tuttle can pass, and we saw Kirk Campbell wants to spread it around a little bit, then you could get in a sticky situation with this team late. And one thing we've seen from Illinois is they know how to execute with the game on the line.
Yeah, very interesting. 2 offenses whose scripted drives have been very successful. Michigan been successful on our scripted drives as well. So if you're betting this game, which I am not, I'm staying away from this one. Maybe tied after the first quarter, 7-7 is the way to bet this one. 2 teams that can really get out there and execute well when they have. And in Michigan coming off a bye as well. That first scripted drive is going to be scripted. I mean, that thing is going to be to the T. So something to watch out for there. What else on this offense? What else are we missing here? Anything else that we need to touch on here before we switch over to the defense? Andrew, certainly see your comment in there about the Illinois defense against Purdue, which we'll try to get to. I still don't have any great answers from that game, but we'll try to address that.
Nah, let's go ahead and flip over to the defense.
Let's flip over to this defense where going into the fourth quarter against Purdue, they had a 20-3 lead. I don't understand what happened in the fourth quarter in particular in that game, but up to that point, this Illinois defense had been about what we expected.
Yeah, it's still a weird unit to like really put my thumb on. Like it's very physical up front, but listen to these numbers because normally they track together, sacks and tackles for loss. But strangely enough, Illinois' defense is number 37 in sacks and number 118 in TFLs. I don't know if I've ever seen a disparity that great between the two numbers on a defense.
Is it a schedule thing? I mean, is it just because they've played like one very difficult team and then a couple cupcake-ish guys in there?
It could be. My theory is they're not very good against the run, 77th nationally, but they are good against the pass because of the secondary. And the secondary allows that pass rush a little bit more time to get to the quarterback, which is why they're 44th against the pass. So when the secondary can complement them, they're okay. But when it's just running downhill, they tend to struggle.
So a little bit of context there. Wins against Eastern Illinois, smoked them. One against Kansas in a close one, smoked Central Michigan, and beat Nebraska in a close one. So I mean, that's two ranked wins. Kansas and Nebraska being ranked. The one lone loss coming.
Sucks though.
Kansas sucks now. They were ranked at the time for sure. So that's worth noting as well. But against the better opponents, they're either hanging around or, they're right there with a chance to win it. And then the 21-7 game against Penn State, kind of an ugly game. That was really a difficult one to watch. I like defense, and even I found that one a little bit unpalatable. But it's interesting just kind of the way that they've gotten up against bigger opponents, and then against some of these smaller opponents, they're cruising and having no issues.
Yeah, it feels destined for this game to be a one-score game, no matter where it goes. Like even the Penn State game was one score all the way right up until the end. So I think it's going to be close. We talked about the secondary a little bit a second ago. They get Xavier Scott back, stud corner this week, expected to play. That'll be a big boost to them. And honestly, their strategy back there is what it was the last couple years. Like even with the departure of Ryan Walters, it hasn't changed much. It's a lot of cover one. It's a lot of man-to-man. They're going to be physical as hell, and they're going to overcommit resources to stop the run and force Michigan to get it done through the air.
Number 77 rush defense against Penn State, who I would say is the closest talent-wise. Penn State, I like what they did. They ran the ball a lot against Illinois. 18 carries for Katron Allen, 16 carries for Nick Singleton. They put up 239 yards on the ground on Illinois. That should be the recipe, should it not?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, keep it simple. It's like you get a few passes through the air, do some things like that just to soften them up, but get back to running the damn ball. Like, come on now. Like, this team knows who it is. And it's going to help that. I think we should mention that we found out after the Washington game, Jack Tuttle had only had like 3 real practices before he came in the game. He only been cleared a week before to just practice, and then steps in just completely raw dogging the game. Like, okay, I think I remember how to do this, and just slinging it around. So now that he's had a full 2 weeks to get ready, I think you're going to see a more polished attack from him and hopefully less mistakes.
Is this just fans being fans? Because I'm seeing a lot of enthusiasm rising over the course of the bye week for Jack Tuttle. I mean, fans talk themselves into anything, you give them enough time. Is it that, or is there really something there? 2 weeks with Tuttle. Obviously, we'll find out on Saturday, and all these questions will be answered, but this was our original plan for this team, man. Like the Vegas kind of reflects that. This score jumped, the spread jumped another point the other day. Michigan now basically field goal favorites here on the road. So it's pretty interesting, but I seem to feel the confidence rising with Jack Tuttle at the helm.
I think it's hard not to rise when you see those first 3 drives that he was under center for. Like, you could see the potential. And this is a guy, again, that doesn't have the experience and the timing with his receivers, and just looked like the best passer by far on this roster. So, I think we have to – there's reason for optimism, but, he's not going to be J.J. McCarthy. If this could be 2021 Cade McNamara or early 2015 Rudock while he gets his feet wet, that's great. Honestly, if he just doesn't turn the ball over, that's the best part of this. It's competency, and that's something we haven't seen yet this season consistently from the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at to Andrew's question there about what the hell happened in the fourth quarter against Purdue, R. Brown, I don't even know who their backup quarterback is. They put in another quarterback at Purdue whose name I don't know, had to learn for this podcast, but he was carving him up in the fourth quarter.
Ran all over him too.
Ran all over him. So I don't know that Tuttle's going to have quite that ability with his legs, but Purdue, I don't know if it was Purdue getting some juice in that fourth quarter, or if that Illinois defense is really that susceptible to a mobile and dual threat quarterback.
It's that fourth quarter, man, it just gave me a lot of hesitation about who Illinois is. You know who's calling plays for Purdue now on offense?
Oh, it was what's his name, Graham Harrell, but now I don't know who it is.
Walters, the defensive head coach, is calling offensive plays for them. Like, I think his job is like on the line. So he's like, all right,
Oh
well,
yeah,
I'm gonna go out on my own terms. So he's calling plays for the offense.
that doesn't seem like the right call, but I mean, hey, the results of that fourth quarter speak for themselves. Almost
Yeah,
pulled it
but
out.
I mean, like, Purdue had 200-yard rushers with the quarterback and Mockabee. Mockabee was averaging 9 yards a carry in this thing. Then the backup, I say Brown threw for almost 303 tuds. Like, I don't know. It's hard for me to see those numbers and reject them. You and I we're talking this past week about like not being a prisoner of the moment, but also not rejecting new information when it's presented to us. And this game has been a hard test and hard way to find a balance of the two.
Yeah, and to be totally honest with y'all, we didn't watch that one. There were several other games going on, and that game was out of hand. Like I thought it was over in the fourth, so I kind of took it off the four screen and wasn't paying attention. Had to go back and watch the YouTube to see what happened. So it is crazy to look at, crazy to think about. And that game was in Champaign. Like this game also
Yeah,
in
home.
Champaign. And they're making a big deal about it. They're wearing some uniforms, which are a choice. They look like maybe a autistic child tried to make a bar graph in Excel and
Jesus.
they just printed it on their uniforms. They are making it look like they're wearing leather helmets, but it's just decals that make it look like they're tough. So I don't know. I can't imagine somebody wearing those uniforms and beating the Michigan Wolverines if we're just going to simplify this.
No, and like I know Altmaier's improved, but like they want to have balance as a rushing attack, and they rush for 177 against Purdue. But like even with that number factored in, the Boilermakers are allowing on average 228 per game. They're the second worst team in Power Four
Yeah.
in rush defense, and like they were controlling the line of scrimmage late in this game. So that makes me feel good about Michigan in this. As like the more I dove into it, I saw the offensive line struggles from them throughout the year, and then I saw that result. I'm like, if we can win the line of scrimmage, especially if you have Jeff Percy starting at right tackle, which he's rumored to be, and Tuttle can take care of the football, I have a really difficult time seeing Michigan lose this game.
Not lose it if they're wearing those uniforms. I'm just going to
You
simplify this
can't
for
lose in
everyone.
those uniforms. Those uniforms are horrendous. Like I wonder if people 100 years ago hated them as much as we do now. Like, damn, those still suck.
100 years ago, they would have said, we need a graphic designer. This is unacceptable. Like, this is a affront to my eyes. What about Michigan coming off a bye week? You're the historian here. I always lean on you for this. Obviously, it's the Sharon Moore era, first bye week of the Sharon Moore era. So we don't really know how a Sharon Moore team will respond to the bye week. But historically, Michigan coming off the bye, like just off the top of my head, it's kind of a mixed bag. And I'm interested to see, like, what does this team look like? Lots of changes. The Jeffrey Percy to right tackle, something we talked about on our podcast last week. Joyous news that we are very welcoming to this. So that could be a change that you see. Couple guys that may or may not be healthy. We'll see. I think Derek Moore ruled out was one that I saw. So like, we'll see if maybe some of those other guys can get healthy. Josiah Stewart will be back, promoted to captain. But other than that, it's just more like internal development, growth, getting Jack Tuttle ready, maybe the Percy move to right tackle. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see what they were able to do with the bye week.
Yeah, it's a hard one to quantify. So like the last two Michigan coming off the bye, they had night games, which were kind of weird environments. I was actually at both of them. One with you. One was the Michigan State game in 2022, and it was like, okay, came out a little sluggish. That game was a rock fight for the most of it, and then it was just marred in history because of the assault afterwards. And then last season, it was the Purdue game, and I was there, and it was like a week. It was like 2 weeks after the sign stealing allegations began. And the game just felt like every throw was like an FU to people that were doubting them. It was just too much emphasis, too much focus, too much just middle fingers in the air on every play. I mean, they dominated 41-13, but it was just like an ugly kind of sloppy win there for a while. So very interested to see how Sharon handles it. I've liked all the stuff I've heard about fundamentals and coaching and just the small details, because that's really where this team is missing, like linemen stepping with the wrong foot, poor hand placement and stuff like that. It felt like Sharon really had a chance to look at the offensive line play especially and properly evaluate. And I think, wish he could have done it earlier, but like glad he could do it now and get some things sorted out, because this team is closer to being good than being bad, but it's like they're just not winning in the margin. So I hope they found that during the bye.
Yeah, like Lewis and Andrew were saying in the comments, like this could be the week the O-line, the running game really come together. I could see that. You and I had also been a little critical in past weeks about Kirk Campbell, like kind of what you were just describing. Like, no, we can pass. Watch, I'll prove it. We'll run 3 pass plays in a row in the third quarter. Like, do they get Tuttle in there and they'll be like, no, see, this whole time we could pass? Or do they finally take a look in the mirror and be like, yes, we can pass. Should we pass? Spend so much time thinking about whether they could spend any time thinking about whether they should.
Exactly. So that's one of the issues here as well. It's like, although you have the option now, don't get away from your identity, still be who you are, pound the rock, and like 15 pass attempts in this game, like basically what we saw Iowa do against Washington last week. You can go 10 of 15 in this game for $136. I'm feeling great.
Drew Aller only 21 pass attempts against Illinois for $135 yards. Not exactly an aerial assault, but they won 21-7 with good defensive play. If we can match that Penn State defense, which Penn State defense might be real, that's another podcast. Yeah. But if we can match them for a day, which we know we have the talent to do, just running the ball should be enough. That score should tell you what we saw against Purdue in that fourth quarter in particular should tell you that there are holes to be attacked on this defense. This is a game we should win. I mean, I now find myself a little more concerned with Indiana than I do with Illinois. I mean, that being said, Brett Bielema can teach you proper pin and pull technique, how to fix a snowblower, proper temperature at which to slow roast a brisket. I trust that guy to get it done, but I think maybe this Illinois team was out in front of their skis a little bit. Maybe we're playing a little bit ahead of themselves up to this point and maybe overachieved. What do you think about that?
I think so too. And that Nebraska game, if you go back and watch, I believe that was the week after Nebraska had the big emotional win over Colorado. And that was a weird game. Nebraska was really down against Illinois. Like it felt like an emotional hangover and they just got. They lost in overtime in that one. So I feel like that one kind of like painted Illinois in a different light than they actually are. And I think that's reflected in the spread. Like a higher ranked team at home is an underdog. I think it's kind of saying the quiet part out loud.
Vegas has been on it, man. I mean, we were looking at that Washington spread. Like, why is Washington favored? What do they know? And we learned like not a good matchup for us, but they're saying this is a better matchup. And I think Tuttle swings that spread a little bit. Every game Michigan plays feels like it's the opposing team Super Bowl, at least in this season full of this is the hardest season we've covered by far. We've said that a million times as far as schedule, like this is a ridiculous schedule. And every team we're getting their best shot. It's a little different with Illinois in the sense that like if they lose this, their season isn't over. They can still have a good season. I mean, 8-4 is an awesome season for Illinois, but man, like Brett Bielema is still kind of searching for that big signature win, and this would qualify.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was almost got it in 2022. Like,
yeah,
Corum goes down. That was one of the most frightening, frustrating games like we've ever been a part of. Like, just it was a complete nightmare scenario with Blake Corum going down, Donovan Edwards already being out. We're down to Isaiah Gash, which is funny enough. This is the one thing I hold against the Rib God. They are still complaining about that fourth down play to Gash. Like, well, Loveland was illegal blocking. It was even in their game notes, like officially on their website before the game, like controversial play. It's like, that's like bitching about a holding call 3 years later. Like, get over it. You lost the game.
Unbelievable. There are canned goods that have expired from then. That is too long ago to hold a grudge.
Yeah, grow up, Peter Pan. So
Count Chocula.
The one last note on this team, and I think it's one area that could swing things. And like we talk about field position all the time, Illinois has 2 players both averaging 11 or more yards on punt returns. So be very wary of that, especially after what we saw against Minnesota with that one that was like 61 yards to set up a score for them. Be very careful about that because Michigan's punt return coverage could have a big factor in this game.
Yeah, not a huge difference in penalties. Michigan with 29 on the season, Illinois with 35, similar in yardage. Obviously, we have the superior field goal kicker in Dom Zavada. So, I mean, special teams, something to watch. I think I might give them the overall advantage because our punt units have been hit or miss. You never know what you're going to get with our punt unit. Might be a great day. Might be a 32-yard punt kind of day. So we'll see with that. Yeah, like trying to figure out in between the margins with these teams is a little difficult because they both are very similar. this is such a similar team to us. They just have a better quarterback and a worse defensive line.
Yeah, and it's the offensive lines feel kind of even with like their inconsistencies.
Yeah.
So it's like a few weeks ago, we're like, yeah, Illinois is very similar to Michigan, just better at everything. And then we watched the Purdue game, like, I don't know anymore.
Better at some things. I mean, they definitely have the better passing game because also those wide receivers. Their QB and wide receiver combos blow ours out of the water. But I would take our running attack over theirs for sure.
Absolutely. I'm taking Colston Loveland in this. And like the Tuttle thing is just, you don't know yet. So that's why we can be so bullish about everything. It's like, if it's just average, that raises the ceiling of this team.
I know already. Let me go ahead and pre-type my tweet to you that we are so effing back the moment we drive down the field with Tuttle. I'm going to have King Tut memes ready. I'm
Tuttle shuttle.
All of it, baby. All of it. I'm already go ahead and get those in the till and ready to send to you. And look, I mean, all he's got to do is just not turn the ball over. The exact Drew Aller stat line would be sufficient in this game. 15 of 21, 135 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. We will take that stat line. It feels so easy. It feels like you and I might be able to do that. I mean, you might need to give me like a little bump of something to up my athleticism before the game. You got any adrenaline on the sideline? I could shoot into my heart, but I might be able to get you to 15 to 21.
That is a perfect segue. Let's go ahead and jump into our keys to the game because my first one is right on the money there. Protect the football. The turnover margin numbers are skewed for Illinois this season, though. The Illini rank +6, which ranks number 25 in the country overall, but against conference opponents, Illinois is -4, which is number 111 in the country and dead last in the Big Ten. If Michigan simply draws 0-0 in the turnover margin, they're going to be in a position to win this game. But if they win the turnover margin, I think they win by 7+.
That was also my first one. I really hate like some of the previews this season because they've basically been the exact same for me. Because Michigan had with Alex Orji one way to win a football game. With Jack Tuttle, we have like two ways to win a football game. There's two, but it starts with that one. Yeah, don't turn the ball over. For the sake of parity, I'll mix it up a little bit and I'll say, can we get a little bit of a passing attack going? Like you said, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but can we actually see with Jack Tuttle, oh no, our safeties can't just play down and in the box against this guy. We saw a little bit against Washington when he came in and all of a sudden Donovan Edwards is breaking 7 yards per carry. That was not an accident. That was not a coincidence. Their safety started playing back and Jed Fish addressed that going into the half. Like, now we got to play a little different now. Open it up a little bit early and then get into your run. Like pass to set up the run. Big believer in that, big fan of that. So if you're going to pass, do it on the scripted. Those safeties are going to be nervous. That opens things up for the Don and Kalel, baby.
We've been doing this far too long. My second key to the game is force Illinois to respect the pass. Because if they do, then Michigan's going to have a chance to tear them up on the ground. And this doesn't have to be the down the field shots. Like, I know Michigan isn't a screen heavy team, but remember 2 years ago against Illinois, Michigan ran their first screen of the season for a massive 65-yard game of Corum down the sideline. So even passes like that can prevent the safeties from coming downhill so fast.
I don't want to go on a rant here, but I was wondering why we haven't run any screens this year. I think they ran 2 tight end screens against us. Washington did. And I was like, that's a really good play call. Like, we have wonderful tight ends. Like, we should do that. Is it because we need our tight ends to be blocking because of how bad our O-line is? Why aren't we running any more screens?
So we ran one with Marlon Klein. I think we did one with Colston as well. Screens are hard to run because they take a lot of coaching, especially on the offensive line and a lot of practice time. And our offensive line right now is struggling to do the basic stuff. So I really don't think they just want to information overload them into learning screen games as well, because you have to be so good with your steps and everything else because it can just fall apart so easily.
I get it, but we're not talking about a triple reverse backwards pass kind of thing here. It's a screen.
It takes a lot more practice than you think. It takes a lot more practice than you think, especially as diverse as Michigan's run game is. It's like, okay, we have all these runs. Which one do you want to take off the menu for a screen with a bad offensive line?
I got you. Real quick in the chat here, Titarian, huge fan, go Blue, 6-2 going into Oregon. I like it. I like where your head's at there. Andrew hoping for a Rudock second half to the season. Not beyond the realm of possibility. I don't know that we have the Jehu Chesson, Amara Darbo receivers to help him get there. That would be where I look. It's got to be a big second half of the season for Loveland and these tight ends if you're going to get there. But I like where your head's at there. Do we trust Evan Link to not be illegally downfield on a screen? We do not.
No,
but we don't think he's going to be in there.
I don't trust Evan Link to be too far away from the Gatorade. Like, I need him over there. I like blue, just bring some over, do that. Like, that is where he is best suited for the second half of this season.
Yeah, I'd be fine with Evan Link not on the right side of the line this time. I'd also be fine with Evan Link in the parking lot during this game. I'd be completely fine with that. So we'll see what Percy's capable of. I mean, that is going to be one of the biggest parts of this game. So I'll go there for my next key, pass protection. Like, in order to get that pass game going, in order to get some type of familiarity, some type of comfort back there, there has to be just borderline average pass protection. It has to improve. Competent will be sufficient, because Tuttle looks like he's got some pocket presence back there. Maybe it was juiced up under the lights and really outperformed his normal skill set, but I saw some stuff there. So I really think his pocket presence is the best of the quarterback group right now.
Yeah.
But the pass protection needs to be better. So Jeffrey Percy, come on down.
Absolutely. And this is a team that it's not a dominant offensive line. Or defensive line, excuse me. So if Michigan can get some short shots in there and not give them time to cover, that's great. And the way Tuttle can run too, just please God, don't take too many hits. We know you're made of paper and glass. Got to keep you healthy, my guy. But absolutely, it's going to bring so much there. And a good passing game like that is going to prevent the defensive line from just pinning their ears back, and everybody kind of helps each other. My last key to the game is similar to that, but it's just simple communication. And it's really focused on the two position groups that have struggled the most this season for Michigan, the secondary and offensive line. They've had 2 weeks to improve their communication issues, and they can simply get on the same page and just play fast. We could see drastic improvement in this game. Now, that also goes to the coaches. I think Martindale needs to just scale it back a little bit. Don't disguise yourself out of position. Don't give them too much to think about. Let's get 5 base calls out there, and let's run variations off of those. Instead of having 10, just bring it down to 5. Allow them to play fast, allow them to play free, and I think you could see them really take a step here.
I like that. I think in this one, if we can get a lead early, I did bet this game. I bet Michigan to be leading going into the half, because I think we need to have a lead going into the half. Part of that has been our second half performances have not been great. But also, I think if you let Luke Altmaier and this passing game get into a rhythm, it could get ugly in the second half. So I think you've got to hit Altmaier early. I think if you could get a turnover, a pick early in the first quarter or second quarter, make him start to think twice, get into his head a little bit, rattle his confidence, let this defensive line be great. And in order to do that, you just need a little bit of help. You mentioned the communication in the back end. That's obviously going to be huge. Just keeping them from getting big plays. But really, you just can't let this passing attack. I mean, they're going to put up numbers. They're just too good not to put up numbers. But you can't let them be the unit that dictates the game.
I mean, we say that, but it's if we can get the offensive balance here, we could see the first half like we did against USC, holding Miller Moss in that unit to 3 points. If they can hold Miller Moss, USC, and Lincoln Riley coming off a bye week to 3 points, then they can do the same, if not better, against Illinois.
If they do it against Illinois, I do not trust their offense to come back like USC's.
Again, race to 20 like it has been all season. First team to 20 has won every game this year, and Michigan's played. I think it's the same here.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't exactly play out that way at USC, because I think we got to 20 and then they took the lead, and then we
but still the first team to 21.
Yeah. No, you're right about that, man. Yeah. So I'm with you there. Although the second half execution just has to improve, because we're saying this, we're get up, if you're up 23 at the half, it's over. But there's been some collapses in the second half. So whatever that was, and I'm just signaling generally to the void, whatever that was, that needs to have been cleaned up over the bye. I'm hoping that is something you can coach out.
Absolutely. I think that one of the biggest things is just taking care of the football. You think about the bad Donovan Edwards fumble against USC, or the Kenneth Grant one when he's just rumbling down the sideline, but I excuse him for that because we all wanted a thick six. You think about the 2 Tuttle turnovers at Washington, just taking care of the football. And honestly, you get back to that boa constrictor mentality of just pounding the ball over and over again. This team's going to wear down. You've seen it in the last couple. They wore down against Penn State. They wore down against Purdue. They just quit. So honestly, it's who's going to have enough gas late? Both teams have struggled to close some games. Who's going to have it late and get the job done?
Absolutely, man. We've gone a little long. Lewis has forgotten his stepson at practice because we've gone too long. I understand. It happens. I can't tell you how many stepsons I've forgotten. Uh, let's get to some players of the game and predictions, my friend. I'll start us off. I'm going to keep this simple. Give me the Tuttle shuttle, baby. Give me King Tut. I think that if he can have just a good first half and zero turnovers for the first time all season would be delightful. We have not had a game where we haven't turned the ball over, something that was a staple under Jim Harbaugh. So I'm not expecting anything crazy. 145 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interception. I'm throwing a parade. I'm moving to Rangoon. I'm going to pick up Lewis's stepson from practice. Whatever you need from me, I'm going to be amenable because I'm going to be so happy.
My offensive player is very similar. I'm going with Donovan Edwards. Like, I think the way they can use him in the screen game, it's just in the pass game in particular, he could do some things out here. He remains Michigan's one true home run threat on offense. And we saw it last week against Washington. You saw the touchdown early, and we saw how close he was to another late in the game. So I think Donovan's really hitting his stride this time of the year. I think he's going to break one. I think he's just such a versatile X factor. It's very hard to game plan for a player like him.
Yeah, in the comments here real quick, Andrew, field goal fest coming. I've been saying there's going to be a game like that all year. A couple years ago, it was this Illinois team.
Yeah.
So it very well could be that game. It could be like a 19-12 type of game. It depends. I just think that if we were able to get into the end zone with Alex Orji, I think Tuttle's going to give us more opportunities in the red zone, and there'll be at least 2 touchdowns. But there's a game like that coming. There is a game like that coming. On defense here, feels like a big Josiah Stewart game to shout out somebody in the comments.
Oh, this is Andrew, why you went first.
Yeah, this is why, because you always go first and you steal, and it just seems like I'm just copying you.
That's really the name I had written down, but I'll get another one.
Yeah, there's other guys out there. Now you see how it feels. Do you see how it feels?
I mean, this is a great pick. I think he could really wreak havoc in this game, especially against their left tackle.
Yeah. I mean, and like I was saying early, hit him early, force a turnover early. Like Will Johnson hasn't had a pick 6 in a minute. What do you say?
Been a couple weeks. This would be a good one to do it. I want to switch it up just a little bit, but it's very hard to do so when like the favorites are so just overwhelming. So let's stick with Will. The last time we saw him, it was not great. I mean, getting that penalty late, although it wouldn't have mattered anyway because Brandon Hillman was trying to clothesline Will Rogers in the backfield. But I really think this is a revenge game for him to get back and be dominant. I'd love to see him at the nickel. That would change everything for this team this season. But like the Pat Bryant assignment, whether he gets him, I know Michigan likes to run left and right corner, so we'll see what happens there. But again, when Michigan has needed Will Johnson the most to swing a game, he stepped up and done it.
I could see it, man. That would go very nicely into the plan. I think they will pay the ferryman in this one. I think they're going to have to pay the toll. They will turn the ball over at least once. Michigan defense, for their part, has been forcing a lot of turnovers, just can't keep up with the amount the offense is giving away. So winning the turnover battle in this one, win the turnover battle, I feel 98% confident we will win. So yeah. Will Johnson could be the guy in that one. As far as score, I think Michigan actually scores a decent amount in this one. Of course, this is going to end up being the field goal fest that I've been predicting for weeks. But I think with Tuttle coming off of a bye, healthy-ish, Jeffrey Percy in there, we've got a really good backfield that still hasn't had a game worthy of how talented this backfield is. Like, there's going to be a game where this backfield explodes and looks like what we thought it would be. Could it be this week against the number 77 rush defense? It's entirely possible with Jack Tuttle in there. So I'm going to go 27-24 Michigan. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be more high scoring than people anticipate. Even Vegas has this. I think Vegas sees this as like 24-21. I think it's a little bit higher than that. I'm going to go 27-24 Michigan. Let's go, baby. I'm feeling good about it.
God, I hate you going first. We got to go back to when it was in my favor.
No.
Score prediction, very similar. I see it a lot of ways you mentioned. And I think we might get a little bit of the field goals towards the end in mine. I'm going, I picked Illinois at the beginning of the week because I was just a little down, but it was also the same day I watched every touchdown given up by this defense this year. I was just ready to burn my house down and quit fandom and life. Michigan 27-20. I think they get up there again. Not enough to get to 30 against this team. They're still good enough to slow them down. We could see some late field goals that dictate and swing this thing. But yeah, I just think with Tuttle, man, it's hard to see what we saw against Washington in those first 3 series. Understand the perspective around that, like how he hadn't played live in forever. and to just expect them to come out here and be worse, especially with the complement of running the football, taking care of business. I just think they get it done.
I think so too, man. We were wrong about Washington, but Washington was such a weird game, and like switching quarterbacks midway through, and then the fumble, like things like that should be able to be cleaned up with 2 weeks of game reps or practice reps, at least for Tuttle. So I think that fumble could get cleaned up, and then just throwing the interception, you just got to play within the scheme. Don't try and force anything. Be willing to throw the stuff away when it's not there. And I think we'll be fine. I think so as well. So it'll be a good one, man. Looking forward to this. Number 24 versus number 22. Quite a few ranked games on the schedule this year.
Yeah, I'm going to run through a couple this weekend, but one note I wanted to mention, Rod Moore was in the trenches. Does not sound like he's returning this year. Had a setback in his recovery, but left the door open to returning. So keep an eye on that, because this team misses Rod Moore, desperately. And they even said on the sideline, he's still out there yelling out and calling plays and doing all his Rod Moore stuff. But it's not a coincidence that his defense picked up so much with the coaches and everything else. But also Rod Moore came to town and started as a true freshman. And you saw the communication on the back end when he's on the field.
Yeah, it's such a bummer, but I could actually see him returning now, because this is a stacked draft class that just looks better and better after every passing week. Like, he's probably fallen to the 4th round now, just because he's out of sight, out of mind.
Injuries will knock him to the middle rounds. No matter what. And it's with a dominant season next year, he could be a 2nd rounder, easily.
Yeah, so maybe it's starting to trend that way that he comes back. Michigan did land a wide receiver in the 2026 class today. Saw that on Twitter. I have not had time to research him too much, so can't speak to that. Making sure I hit all the comments here. Titurion seeing 3 tutties and a Zeke Berry pick, or an almost pick 6. Very specific call there.
I like that.
That.
I would be overjoyed, because I've been critical of Zeke Berry, is putting it mildly.
Yeah, Zeke Berry, not exactly on the Christmas card list right now in my house. So, but
no,
still a chance to improve.
Quick rapid fire. You ready? I just need picks. Let's throw some games at you.
All right, hit me.
All right, all this weekend. Bama at Tennessee.
Man, you want to talk about? I don't freaking know. Yeah, coin flip. I'll give it to the Tennessee environment, but man, I don't know. Milroe against that Tennessee defense. I'll go Tennessee, but I do not feel good about it.
Yeah, I'm taking Bama, and I don't feel great either. Miami at Louisville.
I'll go Miami.
I'm going Louisville. Just
okay.
Night game. The original spoiler maker.
Those were our picks at the beginning of the season too. I think you had Louisville and I had Miami, so this is an important one for us.
Georgia at Texas.
I'm going to go Georgia. I think everyone sneaks in with a loss. I think everyone's going to have one loss in this season. So this is where it happens.
Kirby Smart is not anybody I want to bet against.
Yeah, I don't see Kirby Smart dropping 2. This is a good Georgia roster now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Texas, just because of I think I like them at the line of scrimmage a little bit better. But again, I could see it either way.
It's almost a coin flip too.
Nebraska at Indiana.
Fascinating game. I will have eyes all over this one. I cannot wait to watch it. I'm going to go Indiana, man. I'm going to go that Indiana team is balanced. It's not just the defense. That offense is balanced. And I think that being in Indiana, freshman quarterback, Nebraska's looked a little wobblier than I thought at times on defense. I thought that defense would be like a top 10 unit. It's good, but it's not quite that. So I'll go Indiana.
Oh, I love this. This is great for parity. Maybe we should just talk other teams than Michigan. I'm going Nebraska. I think it's going to be a step up for Indiana. I think it's going to be a tight game, but I think they're going to have just enough to kind of get it done. I mean, not like the road environment matters. It's Bloomington, for God's sakes. Last one I have on here. This one is very interesting because of the letdown factor. We've already seen this team pull an upset earlier. LSU at Arkansas at night.
Man, LSU brought me back out of my gambling funk last week. Thank you, Garrett Nussmeier. I think LSU, I don't think they're going to lose 3 games. So I'm gonna say that they beat Arkansas.
They've only lost 1. They won last week.
They've lost 1, but look at the rest of their schedule. Who do they got coming up?
Not easy.
Yeah, there's like one more on there, but I don't.
Alabama, and those are the 2 big ones.
Yeah, I think there's 1 more loss on there, but I don't know if they'll get to 3. I just kind of believe in Brian Kelly finding a way. So I'll say they beat Arkansas in a tight one again. And Nussmeier ascending.
Nussmeier ascending. This is the one I think we're going to agree on. I'm going to go with him as well. I think, yeah, LSU's favored by 2.5. I'm going to go with LSU as well. Arkansas is a tough place to play, though, man. As Tennessee found out, and like that defense is ferocious. They're going to get after them, but I think the Tigers get it done again. But I mean, watch out for Texas A&M. Texas A&M is good now. Like the way Mike Elko has turned around that team, that defense, that third down defense especially is incredible. So I can't wait for that game coming up either.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one, man. Turnaround happening there, getting an adult in the room. Happy Bradley, Michigan going to pull Underwood and Balboa. NIL pull through because of Portnoy. We kind of talked about this on one of them. Balboa seems like it's going to happen. Underwood, I'm a little less certain of because he would probably be their starter next year. Nussmeier's going pro.
I don't know where that one kind of came out of the air.
I don't know about that. I
know people were teasing it and being weird. I don't see that one yet. But Barbaloa seems to be trending in the right direction, supposed to commit before the end of the month. A lot of flip candidates that are leaning Michigan recently. So Michigan State weekend, massive recruiting weekend. So that weekend is important for more than just what's on the field, the future of the program. So be very, very keen on that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we went very long on this one. Appreciate y'all for hanging out. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andrew, Lewis, Happy Bradley, Tyterion, y'all in the comments. We really appreciate y'all showing up, having a conversation with us. We'll be back next week to do it. We will be back on our podcast. That will be out next Tuesday, hopefully discussing a win over Illinois. Andy, anything else from you before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right, let's do it. Go Blue, y'all. We'll see you next time.